Lynagh, and this is my project solution for a 3-tier architecture in AWS. So the first thing I'm going to do today is talk about the architecture. And for this project, again, this is set in the region of North Virginia, and then in that VPC there's the VPC address is 10.0.0.0/16. In that area there are 2 availability zones, and in each availability zone you have one public subnet and 3 private subnets. So each public subnet has a bastion host and a NAT gateway, and then there's 3 tiers to this application. So again, there's a web app, there's a web tier, the app tier, and the database tier. So for the web tiers and for the app tiers, both of those have application load balancers in place, and they also have auto scaling in place. The database has multi-AZ deployment. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is the VPC for this setup. So for this, I named the VPC project VPC, and again you can see that that is available. And with this VPC, you can see again the public address for this. For this VPC, it's connected again to Internet Gateway, and you can see that that Internet Gateway is labeled as IWG. So that's for the Internet Gateway. If I go back to the VPC again for a moment, now bring it up. This VPC has 2 public subnets and 3 layers of private subnets, and again it also had 2 NAT gateways. Next thing we're going to look at for this is onto the subnets for this project. So again, going through this, I have one small error here, but for web, so if we go through this from the top, there's a public subnet 1 and 2, and then there is web private subnet 1 and 2, app private subnet 1 and 2, and the database private subnet 1 and 2. And again, that's their corresponding addresses, and these work in across zone 1 and zone 2. Again, next section we're going to look at is route tables. So for the route tables, the public subnet, again, it's associated with 2 subnets, and then the private route tables for zone A and zone B are both associated with 3 subnets. And again, if we look at these for a little bit more detail, we can see those subnets association for the public subnet, and then we can see subnet associations, again linking these up. So for example, private 1, this is linked, so web private subnet 1 is linked with app private subnet 1, which is linked with DB private subnet 1. And again, this is important. It means that this 3-tier application is more secure, and that each one is redirecting into the other. And then for those private route tables, they're able to communicate with the NAT gateway in the corresponding zones. Alright, if we move on to the security groups for this project. So again, security groups have been configured again to make this app more secure. Really, that's the main idea behind it. And again, they have been labeled with the corresponding instructions. Again, I won't go through all these now. 2 of these were just from default creation. Essentially, we have public subnet groups which allow access from HTTP to Web ELB, and then each security group is set up that we can go through the different tiers of the application. Alright. Moving on to database layers. So then again, for this project, I created a database called project. And if we look at this, so again, this is available at the minute. This is a T2 micro database with in our MySQL. And again, if we look at this database as well, we just want to see the subnets that it's associated with. And in this data subnet as well, last thing I just want to go through some things in the configuration. And really what's important here is that this is set up as multi-AZ database. So if we move on to the next thing we're going to have a view of this project is the instances that are running. And again, this is just actually showing as well the web autoscale that's in place. Okay, so if I go through these two instances, we just want to make sure that they're all in place. So again, if I take the sample instance, okay, take the public IP address, I want to open a new tab. I'm going to paste and open this instance, and again we can see that that's loading. And again, for that's for my app, so this one's for my web. I'm going to again go through that. Okay, so take this public IP address, and again this is just checking to make sure that both of these open. And again, these are linked to our database. And then what I want to do is run a load test on each of these. And we will see later on that that's loading, and we'll see this in our load balancers that they're working. Okay, so that's just the, if we move on then to our load balancers, again, there's a load balancer in place for each of these. So web ELB and app ELB. And again, this is for app ELB, this is for web ELB first, it's an internet facing load balancer. And if we go to the bottom as well, we can see, okay, that there are certain attributes in place. So this manages timeout, and also is monitoring to see when it's required to scale or not. Okay, and app ELB is again very similar. Okay, set up where it's monitored to the attributes are set up to monitor, okay, when there's a timeout and when it's required to use that. For this project as well, for both of these, I created an Amazon machine image for the web AMI and for the app AMI, and we can see again that both of these are available. And I don't want to go through it all now at the minute, but this is just basically the details with each one. Okay, which are both available currently. All right, next thing we want to go through is auto scaling groups for web and app. Okay, if we look at this, okay, we can see for each of these that they have desired capacity of 2, minimum capacity of 2, and a max capacity of 6 for each one. Okay, and again, if we go to check that, let's see again the security groups that these are linked with, the VOC key pair that they're linked with, and they're both T2 micros. So we just click on the app to compare it. Again, it's linked to the corresponding security group that it needs to be linked to, and it's also health checks are running in place. Okay, so if we go then to the CloudWatch for this project, okay, we can see again that our alarms are in place and our alarms are working. Okay, so if we click through this again, we click into this, we can see that the alarms are working, and again they trigger to scale when required. Okay, so that's an overview of this project of a 3-tier application using web AWS.